And we are back to talk about the newest Star Wars show, Ahsoka. Preston, I have a very spicy take off the bat about Ahsoka.
Oh,
are you ready
really?
for this?
Oh, really? Okay. Now, here's the thing. Preface everybody before this. Okay. Carmine and I are both Star Wars fans, but Carmine was very into rogues, and a lot of expanded universe kind of stuff. And I am kind of just into the main series, though I have read some, extended universe, stuff. Probably some of the like weird ones that Carmine hasn't, but like, but he's very familiar with rogues and Clone Wars and things like that. And so
I can't tell if you're doing that on purpose. By the way, it's called Rebels.
No, but I'm just saying.
Oh,
I'm sorry, Rebels. Yes.
Rogue sounds cooler, but
you like it when I get things like purposely wrong. No, I've told you the old story of like going to a guy's birthday party and like he's watching Revenge of the Sith, and I'm like, oh, this is the one where they go back in time and save the whales, right? And he gets really pissed, and it's like, come on, you got to be like. You have to be like in on the nerd jokes to, anyway. But yes, not rogues, rebels. I was taking the piss out of you, but yes. But yeah, you have watched Rebels. I have not. You've watched Clone Wars. I have not. So you are approaching Rebels season 5 differently than I am. Right?
Yes, and I have like the spiciest of takes.
The joke is that Ahsoka is Rebels season 5. Yeah.
Essentially, yeah. No, that's essentially true. But the spiciest of takes is that regardless of how this turns out, it will be competing perpetually with every other show for the number 2 slot, because the number 1 slot of Star Wars shows will always belong to Andor season 1. It's just
that's true.
That yeah,
I mean, it's hard to. I mean, yeah, and a lot of people, Mandalorian is for them. It's not exactly for me, but I think a lot of people are going to be comparing it to Mandalorian, but yeah, it's not Andor.
Well,
let's start
there's a
there,
reason.
okay?
There's a reason why it can never be like Andor. It's because we're only getting 8 episodes, and I don't think there's enough episodes for it to have that Andor treatment. Because Andor, if you think about Andor like this, I was explaining this to somebody. Andor has no episodes wasted. There is no episode in Andor you should skip or wasted time.
Right.
You compare that to Kenobi. There was a couple of things they could have cut out. They could have trimmed the fat on that one. The Inquisitorious base episode, that could have been skipped over completely.
Well, I mean, I think I've nailed down why Andor is good and why Ahsoka is not at Andor level.
We can't say that yet. It's only 2 episodes.
It's only 2 episodes, but I can kind of tell. However, I am coming from it from like I am not getting all of the continuity porn and sitting there going, oh man, oh my gosh, this is a reference to the Grand Inquisitor number 8. This is a reference to, we're finally going to know what happens to Ezra, like this kind of stuff. Like none of that means anything to me. I'm just like, I'm going in fresh and examining the story as it is. At the same time, I'm also not biased in the sense that I'm not sitting there going, oh my God, the cartoon was better. The character was better there and they've ruined them. I don't have that opinion either. So like I can look at stuff, a little less biased.
No one should have that. Well, no one should have that opinion because it's the same guy who wrote both the guy who wrote Rebels, same guy who wrote Ahsoka. So it's like the same guy. All the characters act like they would in their cartoon counterparts. So no one should have that take.
Do that?
That would be yes.
Okay. All right. So everybody so you're saying that fundamentally, like Ahsoka, Sabine, and Hera are the same as their cartoon counterparts in how they act, more or less.
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay. All right.
And
fair enough.
Yeah, no, here's another spicy take. I think you'll agree with me on this one. I loved both episodes, but the show should not have been called Ahsoka, and I'll tell you why. At the end of the day, I think you'll agree with me on this. At the end of the day, she's kind of a boring character to really be the main lead.
She's the worst. I was going to say the same thing, that like, first of all, the show, I like the villains, but the show really began for me when Sabine is introduced.
Yeah.
You know, like she has personality. There's conflict, you know, like you start out. So like fundamentally with like story writing, right? There's usually in order to introduce a character, they usually have a short mini adventure that introduces you to what this character more or less is and makes you like this character immediately. Okay, so the classic example of this is take Raiders of the Lost Ark. You've got your little mini adventure at the beginning of Raiders of the Lost Ark, where you find out everything you need to know about Indiana Jones. That he's this adventuring guy who is rough and deals with tragedy, and then he meets his villain. And he's got this rivalry, and that's all you need to know, like, is in that little beginning introduction for the rest of the movie. And that's how it goes. There must be like a little mini story that tells you who that character is. So with Sabine, right at the beginning, they're trying to give her an award, and she skips the awards ceremony to go riding. And then they try to stop her, and she does this incredibly risky maneuver in order to not get caught. And this tells me everything I need to know about the character, right? That she is a loose cannon. She doesn't care about recognition, or she doesn't feel her mission has been complete because apparently this Ezra character is not around and not rescued. And so like that, she is the character who has the personality, for me in the show. Everyone else is pretty dull. There's a little subtle performance with that droid, a little subtle performance with Hera. Ahsoka is Qui-Gon Jinn 2.0. She is the worst.
I was going to say that. So like I said, at the end of the day, she's kind of boring. She's kind of a boring character to really be the main lead. She's stoic, she's quiet, she's rigid, and just overall better at being the mentor side character that shows up to help out, and we don't see her again for a while. That's the role she played in Rebels. That's what she kind of did in Mandalorian, and it really worked there. This is also why, completely random, this is also why you can't really have a Halo film. Because just like Master Chief, Ahsoka is stoic, quiet, and they're not really quippy like Spider-Man or Nathan Fillion would be, where the main character is a treat to listen to and you enjoy the dialogue there. Ahsoka is just not that. She, like you said, is Qui-Gon Jinn, which is a natural development for the character because in Clone Wars, we actually see her grow up. And in Clone Wars, of course, when she was younger, she was more lively, she had more things to say, she had more dialogue to give out. Here in this show, even though she is the titular character, it seems like the emotional baggage needs to be carried by everybody else around her. And, same thing with the Master Chief movie, if they did it faithfully. The side characters would have to carry that. The main character, not so much. They would have to stay to their true, quiet, calm, collective personalities, which is not really that engaging for most of the audience.
You just need less time on her. Yeah. And fundamentally, like, for dialogue to work, there needs to be conflict in the dialogue, usually when you have dialogue, two characters are trying to get different things and there's conflict, and that's the play going on, is that two people don't see eye to eye. And most of these scenes, the characters are seeing eye to eye, and it's exposition at that point. And I'm talking like among the villains, among the heroes, there's not much conflict until, you're supposed to have this like conflict between Ahsoka and Sabine, but we're kind of shaky on what exactly that conflict is.
Even I'm shaky. I'm glad you mentioned that. Even I'm shaky on it because it doesn't make any sense, and I'm going to compare two Ice and Fire characters so you understand. So like the audience can understand, right? So Okay, so this is so dumb. I guess another spicy take. It shouldn't be spicy. Ahsoka as Sabine's master is the most random fucking thing ever, and I'll tell you why. In Rebels, they barely had any interactions with each other in the show. It's a random ass pull of a plotline to give us tension between our two main leads. It would be like if Arya, in the time skip for Winds of Winter, or Dream of Spring, became the Blackfish's apprentice. Like, why?
Right, just be like, what?
Their family, they know of each other, I'm sure, but there's no connection there that even make any sense, and it wasn't even set up.
Is Sabine even, I mean, is she force sensitive?
No.
That's really weird. Yeah, that's really weird.
For her to randomly go up to Ahsoka and say, "Hey, can I be your apprentice?" and Ahsoka going, "Sure." That there was no setup to that, and we don't get to see any of it, just the fallout of it, because of what we mentioned earlier about how Ahsoka is stoic and all this. Ahsoka does need that one side character to carry that to have the emotional baggage to carry, and that's Sabine. Who, by the way, is Mandalorian. I know some people probably have Mandalorian fatigue. I kind of get that, but this is how it was in like the 2014
my hope is that at all times we just have Mandalorians with lightsabers flying about. That's essentially just what I want out of my Star Wars.
That actually did happen in the show. She at one point Sabine did have the Darksaber. And yeah.
Oh.
This also presents a problem with Ahsoka, because the only character that could have given Ahsoka any emotional depth is Anakin / Vader, and this is post Return of the Jedi, so Vader's dead. That means anyone and everyone around her will carry that baggage, and she'll just be doing the fighting and looking cool. Not that I have a problem with that. I just find it weird they call the show Ahsoka when it really should have been something else.
Right. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. Like, the fighting scenes are impressive. They're well directed. I'll start with some pluses. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
This show is much better directed than Mandalorian. I don't think it's as well directed as Andor, but it's much better directed than Mandalorian. It's much better acted than Mandalorian. It's not as well acted as Andor, but it's much better acted than Mandalorian. So we do have, it has horrible pacing, and horrible dialogue pacing. I started counting the number, it got real, I was about halfway through the first episode, and then I was like, man, there's huge pauses between dialogue. And then I started counting seconds, because I was like, is it just me? I'm just imagining it. And it's line delivered. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ahsoka answers. 1, 2, 3. And I was like, oh my God, this is really slow. It's not so bad in the second episode, but I was like, wow, what is with this dead space? It's like the exact opposite of The West Wing or Gilmore Girls, where dialogue is too fast. The dialogue's too slow. People are talking really slowly, especially in that first episode. And I think maybe it's better in the second episode, because I think the actress that plays Hera is very good, and she was given more screen time.
Mary Elizabeth Winstead, who's married to the Obi-Wan Kenobi actor.
Really?
Mm-hmm. That Star Wars connection.
Huh. Interesting. Oh, well, they can put on some makeup and which actor? You're not talking about Ian McGregor. You're talking about the voice actor for Obi-Wan in the show?
No, Ian McGregor.
Really? Oh,
mm-hmm.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Interesting. Very interesting. But so just, there are those praises at the beginning. The fight scenes are very good. In fact, the fight scenes probably are some of the best fight scenes that I've seen in Star Wars. The acting is, it's not Andor. I think Rosario Dawson has made this is the same with my Emilia Clarke complaint. I know these are good actors, but they've made a bad choice in choosing to play a character stoic. You know, like it's like with Daenerys, like being stoic all the time. Ahsoka sucks being stoic. It's just ridiculous. And so it doesn't feel like there's much conflict between the characters. There's not much reason for them to talk. And I don't feel like they've been friends for many years. I don't feel like there's any banter.
Well, that's the thing. They weren't really friends. So the way Ahsoka's role in Rebels is that she was this person kind of hidden in the shadows, known as Fulcrum, giving like all these rebel cells all this information. She appears very sparingly, and one of the very few appearances she has is in the Rebels season 2 finale, which I have to say, I'll say this for the people who know, they know. Rebels season 2 finale, Twilight of the Apprentice, is one of the best pieces of Star Wars animated stuff ever. She appears in it, and towards the end, she has a showdown with Darth Vader. It's super cool. And there's a lot of emotion there. But she doesn't really have too big of a connection with the Rebels crew. She shows up maybe 2 or 3 episodes in all of Rebels, and it has like over 50 episodes. So
I see. So the Rebels is mainly more about Sabine and Hera and this Ezra character.
And Zeb, the purple alien thing we see talking to the guy from what's that thing? What's that show you like? Convenience? Mark's Convenience? You know what I'm talking
about? Kim's Convenience.
Kim's Convenience, that purple alien guy we got a brief cameo of. And this other man, Kanan, who's Hera's husband. He was a Jedi. They have a kid. I think the kid might show up.
Okay. Now, by the way, that mural on the wall, did they have to do it in like that animation style? They couldn't have painted the mural in any other style. That looked horrible. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
like it was because the mural is the mural in the same animation style as the show, or am I just like
nope, same as the show?
Oh my god, that's tacky as shit. Yeah.
The last 5 minutes of Star Wars Rebels actually is a massive time skip. The first 2 episodes of Ahsoka take place before the last 5 minutes of Rebels, and the last 3 minutes of episode 2 of Ahsoka is a 1-to-1 shot recreation of the last 5 minutes of Rebels, where Sabine cut her hair, she's looking at the mural, she looks back, and Ahsoka is there. And I would argue, you can watch all this on YouTube, by the way, I would argue the last 5 minutes of Rebels did it better than this show did. Because for some reason, Star Wars is afraid to use the Star Wars fanfare and music that we all know and love in their shows. Yeah. I was kind of waiting for Binary Sunset to like come on all the time, and it's just not. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, this is all very, very weird then to me. Like I feel like the show it's certainly more complicated with lore wise than Mandalorian. Like I can tell that there's a lot more backstory to all of these characters and that a lot of stuff has happened. But despite all of that happening, there's not rich conflict. I don't feel that there's like actual baggage or history. And as you're saying, you're like, well, because the characters that didn't actually like interact. And I was like, oh, like that's weird. Instead, they invented this off-screen conflict that's kind of weird between Sabine and Ahsoka, but
because they're both, I guess, very stubborn. That's what I'm saying. I think the reason they made them Master and Apprentice and then not anymore is to have this like tension and all this,
to have some sort of conflict. Yeah, to have some, because it seems to be the only conflict between the characters is that, and which it seems to be a good choice. I know that you're probably annoyed that it like happened off screen and seems weird, but it's the only conflict between the characters. So like, I like that they've added it, because what else would they have? It would be a bunch of like boring people hanging out together.
I will say the one thing I fucking love about this show, because despite all what we're saying, I actually really did like it, and I'm glad Disney's doing the thing, because I always say this every time with, like, whether it's Star Wars or Marvel. I think Disney should start putting out the 2-episode premiere, and they did it with this, and it really worked here. I think the potential for Ahsoka is so high, and I don't know about you, but the stakes feel movie level, not television show level. Because everything in Mando...
this does, like, I'm not quite... Well, we'll get to like the stakes, but you're right that they seem very, very high. Because we're dealing with something very, very new and unique, and it's thank God it's not a planet destroying like weapon. Thank God it's something else. No.
I'm not gonna hold my breath on that. We'll see how they do this, but no, like, this doesn't feel like the plot of a TV show where, you know, Guy is trying to wrangle the underworld from, you know, the grips of Tatooine's Most Wanted, or Guy is going around looking for a safe place for a little green kid in a sector. This feels like a galaxy-wide threat, and we have to talk about this. We talk about it every time in every Marvel show. Whenever something crazy goes down, we have to bring it up here, and we got to talk about it here. Thrawn is an Avengers-level threat. Where are the Avengers? Where's Han, Luke, Leia, Lando, Chewie? Where are the Avengers? Where are these guys to come out here and handle this situation? Why is it just these people? This is a New Republic level threat. Those guys were part of constructing the New Republic. Yeah. Where are they?
Yeah, it's true. That's true. But the thing is like, yes, they have Thrawn, but then they seem to have this other thing going on. You know, the intergalaxy portal transportation system thing, which seems like big enough on its own that you didn't need Thrawn.
Expand on that.
Well, okay. And so I know that in various Star Wars media, there have been extra galactic threats to the Star Wars universe. Essentially, when the story was like, dude, we've done Rebels versus Empire to death. We can't keep having them fight each other. But at the same time, the Star Wars must go on. And therefore, like an extra galactic threat will come in and they'll start fighting them. And this has happened in several of the extended universe, like, media, that an alien race from another galaxy comes in and they have to fight them. And so, I mean, I think this happened in the original Marvel comics. I think this happened in Dark Horse Comics, Star Wars. I think it happened in a couple books. That there are other galaxies out there. I understand that, like, the Star Wars galaxy has, like, small dwarf galaxies that, like, rotate around it, but there's, like, other galaxies beyond that, and then there's usually an alien race that comes in some story to attack, and then that's like the new threat because they're sick of Rebels versus Empire. And so when I hear about them going to another galaxy, I'm like, ooh, it's one of those extra galactic alien race threats, isn't it? You know,
we possibly might get that, because in the Thrawn books, the new ones, apparently Thrawn's people in the unknown regions have been dealing with this, like, insane alien race that I think has the ability to shapeshift.
This is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about. Like, it's literally been done like 6 or 7 times in like Star Wars extended universe, in some point, you know, because like, they're, you know, who else are they going to fight? We got to introduce another enemy. But yeah. Okay. So
well, but the stakes are really big in Ahsoka, because if Thrawn comes back, we all know that one person essentially can change the fate of the galaxy. Luke Skywalker was that deciding factor in the whole Empire versus Rebels thing. So was Han Solo and his guys. But that's the whole plot of the sequel trilogy, at least the first film. We got to get Luke Skywalker back. There's a map, and it leads us to Luke Skywalker, because if he comes back, then we can win this. It all rides on this one guy. Same with Thrawn. Thrawn is an incredibly intelligent strategist, and if he comes back, he can whip every asshole into shape and get this thing back on track and fuck up the New Republic. Once again, spicy take. This show, I'm overshooting it because we only had 2 episodes, but this really this is what the sequel trilogy should have been about. The heir to the Empire. Ahsoka, Ahsoka tracking whoever's trying to bring back Thrawn, encountering Rey and Finn, joining forces with them, ultimately training Rey, because it really should have been Rey and Ahsoka, not Sabine, because they have no relationship whatsoever. And I guess you can throw a plot in there of why Luke is missing, because maybe he went to go look for Thrawn himself. Maybe Luke is, imprisoned. Throw in the Yasala Miri that can, remove force powers.
You're everyone's favorite plot device, the anti-force lizards. Yes, the best Timothy Zahn creation.
I mean, it's something but no, this really should have been the sequel trilogy right here, not not a rehash of New Hope. This feels like something new and grand on a bigger scale.
Right. So I will say that plot, well, I have no problem with the plot. The plot seems very interesting. Everything's been set up kind of interesting. We have a very interesting villain, this this odd witch with mysterious powers and interests, this strange Jedi ex-Jedi with a dark and mysterious past that we don't know about. His apprentice, who she doesn't say anything, but man, the way she acts with those eyes, you're just like, oh my gosh, she's very interesting. I'm more fascinated. I'm more interested in the villains than I am in the heroes by far. And then we have this interesting conflict of an ex master and apprentice getting along. A lot of things are set up to be interesting. A droid that's how many thousands of years old? Jesus,
Huang is I think I'm saying his name right. Is pretty old, and he's played by David Tennant. By the way, Ray Stevenson, who plays Balin, I'm pretty sure he passed away.
Yeah. He in the first episode after it ends, it says in memory of our friend Ray. But wait, I'm sorry. You said Balin Greyjoy?
What? No, I said Balin.
You said our friend Balin. Oh, his name's Balin. Damn it.
Yeah.
Balin
Skull.
I know Ray Stevenson because he was on Rome and he was great in Rome.
I haven't seen it yet. I gotta get on that.
It's kind of clever because Rome is, when you watch Rome, you're going to be like, this is it's a proto Game of Thrones. Everything that they did for Rome, they kind of took those techniques and ideas and just brought it over for Game of Thrones. So Rome, it's one of the cute, fun things in it is in real life, there are 2 soldiers that Julius Caesar mentions in his history, his conquest of Gaul. And they're just random. He just randomly mentions them. But they decide to make these characters, they decide to put them in the story. And then they kind of Forrest Gump stumble their way through the rest of Roman history. They get fired from the army and then they get hired as guards here. And then they go on the characters just keep going and it's just kind of funny. And so Ray Stevenson plays one of them, Titus Pulo. Yeah. And so it's, they're kind of the everyman while all of these other emperors and things are going on while they're the everyman. So it's kind of but yeah, he passed away. We're not sure why. So, but yeah, he's great, But man, when we get to the heroes, their dialogue is just fucking abysmal, and it's just the pacing of their dialogue is abysmal. It's just slow and boring. Second episode is better than the first, but And I liked that. I really liked the businessman that they go talk to.
He was in
You know what I'm
House.
talking? Yeah. The house doctor guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was great. He was really fun. He was so much more interesting than everybody else.
He made a very good point. That's kind of true. He made a very good point about like these guys are just workers. They don't really care about politics. They just care who gets paid. True. And then they go up and, of course, in the control center, everyone who's working there is like an Imperial supporter for some reason, and like it really is,
except for him. Yeah, like all of his workers around him were like,
totally
didn't know. Yeah,
I believe that he did not know. And when they're all being arrested at the end of the day, like Hera's like, I can't believe like this has been going on, and Ahsoka's like, yeah, greed will make you do that. Greed? The guy yelled for the Empire before he attacked you.
Before he suicidally attacked you. Yeah, I mean, that guy was a true believer. Guy was a true believer.
I will say, I kind of like this running theme of corruption and decay and neglect that's happening in the New Republic that kind of makes them seem a little bit like the Empire. We saw it in Mando, we saw it in Book of Boba, kinda, and we're seeing it here. That even though the New Republic is now in charge, it's getting a little difficult taking care of all these minor issues that fester and become a huge problem.
But also like it's odd that they try to make that distinction. Like it's so in fiction they like to portray heroes as selfless and villains as greedy and self-interested. And the thing is in real life, there's plenty of villains who are selfless. Like, every suicide bomber is pretty damn selfless, right? Like every terrorist is pretty damn selfless. Like, they just believe in the cause. They're deluded and nuts, but they believe in the cause, And so it's weird how they portray that. Like you couldn't believe that people would be into the Empire like that, like deluded, like these people like throwing all of their money at like Trump's defense fund or something and like going bankrupt. Like, like they're not being selfish. They're being completely selfless. They're just, being tricked, It's the same with like, religious zealots or whoever. There's plenty of these villains who are selfless. So it's very odd that Ahsoka's like, oh yeah, greed will do that. Like you can't, you can't, like, it's very odd, especially when the Empire is supposed to be like a parallel to, colonial powers like Nazis and Americans too, because it's George Lucas. But, as if like they weren't, ideologues. Anyway. A weird line.
But, no, like I said, overall, I do like it. I did like the 2 episodes a lot. A lot of it does have to do with nostalgia. A lot of it has to do with it looks very good. And the potential here for this to be a very good Star Wars show is there. Because now it really, the show actually begins now. Of course, the first 2 episodes, people are going to be very lukewarm on it because it has to set everything up, which, okay, fine. Yeah. But everything has been set up. Going forward, no more setup. Let's get to the actual meat and potatoes of the entire show. Like I said, I liked everything. I thought the animatronics were great. I think the Loth Cat, that's what that thing is called, the Loth Cat.
Oh, it looked fantastic. The Loth Cat looked fantastic.
Looked great. The droid, Huang, he looked fucking phenomenal. Oh, practical effects.
Yes. No, and I was even like looking at Ahsoka's like makeup and her like weird slimy tentacles. They looked good. They looked fine, I mean, all the pieces are here for a really fantastic show. We have a rich setting. We have characters with rich backstories. We have a lot of mysteries. We have a unique plot that Star Wars has not done. And, all the pieces are there. I just wish it had better dialogue. I just wish it had better dialogue.
Fair. That's fair.
That's the big thing, you know. So I guess it was not bad. It was not bad. I would say it wasn't fantastic. It wasn't great, but it has a lot of potential. It's not Andor, but I'm gonna say it's better than Mando. You know,
which Mando? Season 1, 2, or 3?
I think all three. I think it's better than. I think so far it's better. Like you forget when we first watched Mando, like those first couple episodes where it's just like him talking to Pig Boy and like, you know, and stuff, and you're just how slow it was and how nothing went, like nothing happened, you know, and you know it's Mandalorian is slow too, and Mandalorian has really clunky dialogue too. So it's, you know, I will say it's better than Mandalorian. And people love Mandalorian. So I think a lot of people should be loving Ahsoka.
Like I said, I think Ahsoka and Mando Season 2, which I really like Mando Season 2, will be fighting it out for the second best Star Wars show. Because once again, nothing will top Andor.
Nothing will top Andor, yeah.
I would be pleasantly surprised if Andor Season 2 tops Andor Season 1, but with the writer strike going on, I don't know what that
Who knows if Andor Season 2 will happen, yeah.
Yeah, or I'm sure it'll happen, but I don't know when, and I don't know how the writers and actor strike will affect it, because there's a writer and actor strike going on right now, so...
Right. Well, you know, Dave Filoni is striking as a writer, and Rosario Dawson is striking as an actor, so you know, they need they're on the picket lines.
It's a real shame they didn't give Filoni, and I understand why they wouldn't give it to him, but it's a shame they didn't give Filoni the keys to the kingdom for the sequel trilogy, and I get why. Like, he was still relatively untested. He was like in the middle of like Clone Wars and blah 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 blah. But honestly, this is his turn to shine. And to show them, like, yeah, you should have given it to me. Because once again, like, we have the same stuff we always have in every Star Wars film. We have the MacGuffin. This new MacGuffin in Ahsoka, I hope they go into more detail to explain, like, why it does this thing and why they know about it. They kind of did in episode 2, but they might just gloss over it. I just hate when they introduce a MacGuffin and it's never, like, gone into detail. And the biggest offender of the MacGuffin not really being explained that well and why it does what it does is the one in Rise of Skywalker, the dagger, Ochi's dagger, why it like shows exactly where the wreckage of the Death Star is and where to go and how to go there and where to look specifically. That was ridiculous and unexplained. Like, as ridiculous as it was, if they explained it, it would have been more palatable, but no, just no.
So this is what I mean, I do really like Dave Filoni, and Filoni, he kind of has the perfect balance of, so if you approach material with a little too much reverence, like nothing new is going to happen. You're never going to break new ground. You're never going to introduce some crazy character. You're never going to take a risk. But if you go in with no reverence, you know, you end up just destroying everything. So it's like, you know, so there's like, you know, Rian Johnson destroy the universe kind of stuff of Last Jedi. And then there's I would say Mandalorian, where like not too much, like there's nothing new done, you know, you're not making any huge waves in the universe. You're just picking this like one culture, the Mandalorians, and like writing some backstory to it. And even that, it wasn't that heavily influenced by Dave Filoni's like stuff, because it was his writing of the backstory, right, from the cartoons.
Some of it, yeah, and I'm sure some of it was from like the books and the expanded universe that came before him.
Yeah, so like, you know, Filoni, he's willing to invent new characters, you know, like he's willing to go in there and say, you know what, Anakin Skywalker had a frickin' Padawan, you know, you're like, really? What? Yeah, that's right. And she would flip around with two lightsabers and everybody hated her. And, you know, like, okay, you know, he went and put in time travel, right? He put in time travel, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
Time travel? Yeah. So the guy takes some risks. So
the time travel he put in, it's not really time travel, but it is, but it's not, but it is, but it's not. Do you want me to go into it? It's a whole fucking thing.
I know that like that battle between Ahsoka and Vader is like the moment, right? And like Ezra like pulls Ahsoka out of the...
He doesn't go back in time. He goes into a time lobby where everything that has ever happened or will happen is happening in this lobby, and there's portals to it. And Ezra's watching the battle between Ahsoka and Vader, and she's about to lose. And he's like, no! And he reaches out and grabs her, pulls her out of that time, and they're in that time lobby together. And then they eventually leave that time lobby, because it's where it is. It's like a area. And for all of Rebels, she survived that. She like went out of time and back into time. It's really weird, but I think if you're going to do time travel, I guess that's what it is. It's kind of
she was in the time lobby.
She was in the time lobby.
So there was no changing. There's no changing of the timeline. It was just that she was able to be plucked out of time at some point. And then put back in. Put back in somewhere else, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Here, by the way, I'm glad you mentioned like when Ahsoka first appeared. So this is her appearance when she first appeared. Granted, George Lucas drew her, or George Lucas had a big influence on who she is. And here's
right. I understand that like he and Dave Filoni like kind of like sat down and did that stuff.
Yeah, they also disagreed on this, and eventually, I guess George Lucas took a backseat role and he just fucked off, and Dave Filoni came in and gave her more clothes. This is something I've noticed about the old guard when it comes to putting women in things. They always need to have them dress very skimpy for some reason. I'm reminded of Gene Roddenberry and Star Trek with how he did Deanna Troi.
Oh, sure.
He gave Deanna Troi
in the original series, all the women had skirts.
Yeah.
So no, that's funny. So what Carmine is showing me is that when Ahsoka first appeared, she had a tube top. Like not even a tank top, a tube top. Like she essentially has a sports bra, and that is her outfit, is a sports bra. And then over time, the sports bra becomes a tank top, and then the tank top becomes a sleeveless shirt, and then her arm bands start covering up her arms. That's
all Filoni doing that. Like George Lucas put out what he wanted the character to look like, and then Filoni came in and clothed her over time, which is great. But this is something like I've noticed the old guard likes to do. They like to
Now look, I have no problem with, like, I'm no prude, and I think that, like, you know, there's nothing wrong with like showing character's skin, but there should be some sort of like equity to it. Like, if it's not practical, you shouldn't do it. Like, and if the men aren't doing it, the women, then the women shouldn't do it either. So, like, the Jedis are running around in these like big bulky cloaks and shit. Like, why is she running around in a sports bra? Like, that doesn't make any sense, right? But at the same time, you don't want her, whatever, dressed in a burqa. So, like, you want. What she should be dressed in is what outfit fits the weather and her fighting and is comfortable to fight in, so I don't know. I mean, she's got some flowy, she's still showing her shoulders though. I guess, it's fine, but it's kind of funny.
Overall, we both enjoyed the show. I'm very optimistic.
It was fine. It was fine. I thought it was a little slow and had some clunky dialogue, but it's very well directed and it's well acted, and there's a lot of potential there. Mm-hmm. And when the villains are on screen or when Sabine is on screen, the show seems to work. Though I think the Hera character is also pretty good. Yeah,
Hera's pretty good.
Right.
Yeah, no, I'm pleasantly surprised and excited for where we're gonna go. But yeah, that is all for today, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. As always, we'll see you all next time. Have a good one.